Through the NFL and all, about 2 years ago, that's when I was diagnosed with, or I found out through a genetic test that I had this hereditary thing, ATTR, amyloidosis, which affect 1 out of 25 African Americans now. The funny thing about that, like I said, I equated all these typical, symptoms or problems that I was having from the results of football. Through the NFL, they got a program. We go down to Tulane Medical Center every 5 years, and they do a total mind, body, and all assessment of you and help you, whatever issues you got. Dr. Ferdinand sat me down, the last day was like a 3-day event, where they go through the assessment. And he said, I'm going to just ask you some family questions, health questions about your family and all. And I started off with my brother, and then I started hitting the other family members. That's when he made that statement to me about there's a genetic variant that affects 1 out of 25 African Americans called amyloidosis, ATTR. And he advised me, he said, when you go back to Kansas City, I would advise you to take a genetic test. First thing I'm thinking in my mind, when I found out about all this, I got a big family. I got 5 girls, 6 boys. Then I got, on top of that, we're in the process of having our 26th grandchild, and I think we got 2 more on the way. So the first thing I'm thinking about my family and all. And then the secondary family, which is family, still family till this day, is, players that we play with. No matter if it's in the NFL or, college guys or high school guys, that man is going through the same channel I've gone as far as beating your body up. I'm pretty fortunate to have the opportunity because what we're trying to do is just more so get awareness out there, because if you get early detection and all, it makes a world of a difference.
This is Genetics for Healthcare, a podcast for patients.
Today, I am honored to have Kansas City Chiefs great Art Still, who is an ambassador for the Kansas City Chiefs organization and the area, and an ambassador for his genetics and healthcare journey. And he's here to share with us his TTR mutation status and what he's learned and how he is leveraging his influence to draw awareness to the effects of TTR mutation carriers. Art, thank you for being a guest on Genetics for Healthcare.
No, this is a privilege, and again, it's an honor and privilege to be on one of the best podcasters on this side of the Mississippi. What side of the Mississippi you on?
Both of them. There you go. So I'm in Texas, so I guess I'm on the west side, which is the best side. We're going to claim that. You played for 12 years in the NFL, and everybody knows that, ex-athletes, even if you didn't play in the NFL for any number of time, aging is not kind to you. No. But you playing in the NFL for 12 years, when did you first started to notice that something was off with your health besides the normal, arthritic conditions and things that will happen?
My background, and then just, I'm from Camden, New Jersey and all, right across Philadelphia and all. And again, as you stated, only means I grew up in the projects. The only means of getting out of the projects was using your athletic skills, getting a scholarship. So I went to the highest academic university on this side of Mississippi, University of Kentucky, in 1974. And too, with sports. I was in school for 4 years, got drafted Kansas City Chiefs in 1978, played 12 years, 10 years with Chiefs, 2 years up in Buffalo. And then if you put it all together, that's 20 years of just pounding your body over and over. And it's, constant pound. And now we know about the concussions, besides all the physical injury, the brain injuries and those types of things. As far as, I got the carpal tunnel, I got trigger finger that I had surgery with. I had both of my shoulders replaced. I got stenosis in the back, but at that particular time, I just thought it wasn't the same thing you thought it was just from doing squats, all that running on the turf and those types of things. Had swelling in my legs, especially my foot and my calves and all too. And again, I thought tearing your knees up, inflammation, those types of things. Through the NFL and all, about 2 years ago, that's when I was diagnosed with, or I found out through a genetic test that I had this hereditary thing, ATTR, amyloidosis, which affect 1 out of 25 African Americans now. The funny thing about that, like I said, I equated all these typical, symptoms or problems that I was having from the results of football. Through the NFL, they got a program through the NFLPA and all. We go down to Tulane Medical Center every 5 years, and they do a total mind, body, and all assessment of you and help you, whatever issues you got and all. And that's where, there's a doctor, Dr. Ferdinand. He's an African-American cardiologist. And at that particular time, I'm pretty adamant about doctors and, I have my negative feelings about doctors and same with pharmaceutical drugs and those types of things. And the reason why is because my brother, who's 5 years older than me, had all the exact same thing, and eventually they had the heart transplant on him about 14 years ago. So I had a real bad taste, and I was always equating all those things from Dr. medication, and doctors doing surgery all over his body and all too. But Dr. Ferdinand sat me down, the last day was just like a 3-day event, where they go through the assessment. And he said, I'm going to just ask you some family questions, health questions about your family and all. And I started off with my brother, and then I started hitting the other family members. That's when he made that statement to me about there's a genetic variant that affects 1 out of 25 African Americans called amyloidosis, ATTR, which is a genetic disease and all. And he advised me, he said, when you go back to Kansas City, I would advise you to take a genetic test. So when I came back up to Kansas City, within a couple of weeks after I took the test, found out I had it, got in touch with my brother who lives right here in town. He'd had shoulders replacement and revisions on those, knees and everything else. And he took the genetic test, found out he had it. And then I got another brother who's married to my wife's sister. He has all the exact same symptoms. He's got the defibrillator and pacemaker in him. And he hadn't taken a genetic test, but all those signs point towards that. And then on top of that, my oldest brother, James, his son at the age of 36 years old, about 5 years ago, passed away in a hospital, and I think they misdiagnosed or overdosed him on some stuff, but he had sickle cell and amyloidosis, the same thing. So, first thing I'm thinking in my mind, when I found out about all this, I got a big family. I got 5 girls, 6 boys. On top of that, we're in the process of having our 26th grandchild, and I think we got 2 more on the way. I'm thinking about my family and all. And then the secondary family, which is family, still family till this day, is, players that we play with. No matter if it's in the NFL or, college guys or high school guys, that man is going through the same channel I've gone as far as beating your body up. That's when we started, trying to get the word out, so to speak. And that's how we kind of connected somewhat and all. I'm pretty fortunate to have the opportunity, because what we're trying to do is just more so get awareness out there. Because if you get early detection and all, it makes a world of a difference and all. I look at the NFL and I can trace all my injuries or all these symptoms the year after I retired. 1990 is when I retired. That's when I had the first doctor was doing some work on my shoulder and all. And he told me, don't be surprised if your bicep tear. Within a year or so, that tore. All the other symptoms came along up until the heart situation where I got AFib. I got heart disease right now. I got AFib. I had to have ablation, cardioversion. Right now, I'm on some medication to keep me in rhythm and all.
So, first of all, I got to give a shout out, and we want to unpack a lot of the things you just said and give, our listeners and our viewers some context, amyloidosis and the specific genes. First of all, shout out to Joanne Pugh, which is your classmate from the great University of Kentucky. Her son is a former NFL player. She founded 50-Yard Line Moms, doing some incredible work also with the NFL. ATTR, it's a hereditary gene mutation, or it could be wild type, meaning it just occurs spontaneous.
Yeah, they're various.
It's called
Don't be throwing them words at me, man. I get a headache real quick, man. That's my helmet on my bucket on my head, man, and all. But I was going to, before you hit that, that's one of the issues and all, because when I found out I had it, they had all the list of all the symptoms. Well, you throwing some words out there like stenosis and neuropathy and all. When I started going through all those words, I was checking on, I don't have that, because those are words over my head. Mm-hmm. When they was talking about swelling the feet, lower back problems, when they broke it down to layman's term, as far as people like myself, not in the medical terms, I'm checking everything off. Oh, okay. And that's that's one of the problems we have too within the healthcare field, and too, because when you go into the community, it's a different culture, different mindset. But when you start throwing words like that, and I got a college education, I graduated, when they throwing terms like that at me and all, that's almost like speaking Martian.
That the good thing is, and this is why I really am grateful for you coming on, because we learn firsthand best by, other people just like us that we can identify with that are going through some of these conditions. Also, we want to give people the language, the confidence to have these. And so if your doctor starts throwing these medical terms or these technical terms at you, you have some frame of reference or can do your research to go back and have those conversations. We want to prepare those out there. As we were just talking about, transthyretin.
Your brain going to explode. I wouldn't use those words, man.
That's okay. We're going to put it out there, but we'll talk about it in layman's terms.
Well, spell it out then for us.
Yeah. The condition ATTR is transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy. And it's caused by a mutation in the transthyretin gene, which is TTR, that leads to unstable protein that misforms and they cause deposits in the heart muscle. And there are different gene mutations, specific ones that are more common in certain ethnic groups. Just as Art was just mentioning, it's very much underdiagnosed. It's estimated that 120,000 adults have ATTR cardiomyopathy. However, the numbers are anticipated to be severely underdiagnosed because the changes in the diagnostic methods and how we have these conversations. And you went for years dealing with this, but it was decades until you had a cardiologist explain to you the hereditary or genetic link and recommended a germline test. And the physicians, or at least at ATTRrevealed.com, they anticipate that 5,000 to 7,000 new cases are diagnosed each year, which is a severe underrepresentation of those who are affected. Why do you think it took so long for someone to just mention this to you and so many others to get properly diagnosed?
Again, it's just being misdiagnosed and all, because just like I'll use my brother's example. He had the carpal and all. They just did the surgery on the carpal. And there's ways that you can trace down, if you have it, that there's certain testing that they can do to see if you have that variant or whatever. Saying the trigger finger. And my brother, they started off, knee replacement, shoulder replacement. Then they wound up going on his back. Orthopedic doctor did surgery on his back, which nicked his dorm, which he was on the table for 9 to 10 hours. And then they had to have another doctor, a specialist, come in to work. And when he came out of that surgery, he just basically in a wheelchair. He's got the drop foot from neuropathy. He's got a variety of symptoms and all that was going on. And what happens is, just like even within our community and all too, most folks are just being treated for the individual symptom, not the core problem, which is amyloidosis. And again, as you stated, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a pharmacist or anything like that. I can just state that, from what is told and what I've learned, it forms in your liver and all. And once it folds up, first thing it start affecting the outer extremities of your body and all, your ligaments and those types of things, like your feet and all. And then eventually, if it's not diagnosed, start affecting your organs, in which, it can affect your kidneys, your heart, and other things. Most of the time you go to the doctor, they're just going to fix the symptom. And that's the reason why we're trying to get information out there, because if you get early detection, you can avoid, like my brother, man, having a heart transplant. And I'll give you an example with him. On our website, we got some information too. On our website, we make the disclaimer and all at still, it's STILL, the number 4, life.org, LIFE. We put the disclaimer on. We're not doctors. We're not a pharmaceutical company. So this is just telling our story. But one of the stories is things that make you go, There's a guy by the name of Howard H. White. Played at University of Maryland, and all my brother played there. Both of them played together at University of Maryland. They got a picture of both of them sitting on the bench, 1972. And then Howard went on to play some NBA ball player. And eventually he went to Nike, and he was one instrumental in starting the Air Jordan brand. I have, talked to Howard H., and, great guy. But who would know 50, 60 years later, both him and my brother had heart transplant and has that genetic defect and all too. My brother, man, I don't know, probably over. And then finally, how he found out wasn't through the doctor, it was through me. Because I found out for myself and passed it on. But he was going, seeing a heart doctor at that time too, had the transplant and those types of things. You think that would have came up a long time ago. I track it back to it, Dr. Ferdinand, Keith Ferdinand, great doctor and all, but I seen him 5 years before then. So the information is starting to just come out as far as this amyloidosis, that one form, that one variant, the hATTR. But like you said, there's other variants out there too. Just using that as a platform to get the information out there for people like myself and people within the community that, again, otherwise they're going to treat the symptoms and then eventually maybe, heart transplant or those things, or you might die from a heart problem.
And this is why the time is now to discuss this. And let's go back a couple decades. Our knowledge of the genome, the Human Genome Project, the $1 billion 20 plus year project that sequenced all the genes, our genetic code as humans, is only 20 years old. And so we have been continuing to understand what these genes do, where they are in the cascade in terms of a pathway, what this change in this gene affects downstream. You just mentioned it when you're talking about cardiac amyloidosis. The signs are fatigue, shortness of breath, swelling in your feet and ankles. I mean, any one of us after a good night can can experience those things. 60% of ATTR carriers experience carpal tunnel. As you mentioned, 40% experience spinal stenosis when narrowing of your spinal column, you start feeling the tingle in your arms, your legs, your extremities, as you mentioned. This has affected your family very deeply. How does watching your loved ones deal with this, suffer, shape your mission?
It's just like playing ball, man. You're playing the game, things happen, you make adjustments and all too. Initially, when I found out for myself, for a second, you start feeling sorry for yourself. Why me? When you put things in perspective and all, and just like my brother, I was over here, we was visiting yesterday, sitting there talking and all. The same thing with him. Only thing you can do, you can't do what happened in the past. Is what's in front of you, and that's how you face it. And not saying, oh, man, this is fun, man, having this. No, it's not no fun, but yet and still, what I'm finding out, just like we're talking about it, when you talk to others and you're in the community doing, and when you're helping others, it's a line. When you help others, you help yourself. Me, I use it as healing myself and all, too, because what I found out, too, considering that it's supposed to be, some people consider a rare disease, I had the opportunity of going out to an event, Rare Disease Week at the Capitol down in D.C. Come to find out there's over 10,000 rare diseases out there. 50% are children. 30% of those children don't make it till they're 5 years old. I'm 69, you're going on 70 years old. The symptoms, I got issues I'm dealing with right now and all. But when you do comparison and all, I'm very, very fortunate and all. And so that's the whole point of going out, getting that information out in the community, not only just on ATTR, but there's a lot of other things affecting, especially in the communities and all that maybe people are not aware of. Right now I got that platform, but there's other things that a lot of times in certain communities, people, man, are shy, don't want to talk about it, don't want to deal with it. But I think when you bring it out in the open and you're doing it on a level where, people can comprehend and at the same time can relate to you, than somebody coming in and almost preaching at you, so to speak, and throwing big words at you. Because I like I said, I grew up in a project. Usually a person come talking like that, man, it just turns you off real quick. And it's a shame we live in a world, because I always say, I don't have no control over who womb I came out, what shade of color my mother, father, what part of the country was from. So the thing is, when you're talking to folks, we all 99.9 have the exact same DNA. I look at things colorblind. Even though we see a world where there's some disruption as far as shade of color, education, and all that stuff, but I try to treat everybody the same way I want it to be treated, no matter what shade, what part of the country they're from. So, like I said, being able to talk about these things and being able to go in the community and talk to folks, I'm not a rocket science or anything like that, but there's some common sense we have that we use that can go a long ways.
You mentioned, and you and I were talking about this, that Black Americans are disproportionately affected by misdiagnosis, right? And in this particular variant mutation, the prevalence is higher in communities of color. How do we kind of improve that trust? And we're talking about talking to doctors and empowering other people to initiate these conversations and take control of their health through genetics. But how can we improve the trust and access so that those in the communities that need it, certainly Black communities in America, get access to genetic testing in these communities?
Like I said, I had a negative taste about doctors and I'm finding out there's a lot of folks now, in this journey, that doctors and in the pharmaceutical business and some of them are in certain pharmaceutical business because they're affected by the same thing. I know folks that are affected by ATTR that are working for some of these pharmaceutical companies too, and their desire is the same thing as me. Get the information out there, early detection and all. Me and my wife been working together and all, and it works out pretty nice because we just did a program in Cooper University Health Center in Camden, New Jersey. That's where I'm from. And it was an interactive program. It was an educational program with Dr. Kumar, one of the doctors, cardiologist. It was on a level where, people in the community came in. Doctor talked about the issues, the problems, the symptom. Me and my wife sitting up there, Liz sitting up there. And part of that conversation was interactive. We started asking questions to us, how we dealt. A variety of questions, which again, took it to another level and all, because now you're not throwing these big terms out. You're getting people that are from the community talking about these things and it's affecting them. People use that term platform. And, playing that I played in the NFL does put you in a different position and all. Even getting in contact with doctors and all, too. You mentioned the NFL. It takes it to another level. Those are things that have been helping to get in the door and all. And there's one other person that I like to mention, this guy by the name of Arnie Joseph. He's been in this field for, 20, 30 years, and especially the ATTR side of things. And he's the same way. We kind of partnered up together. We teamed up. We got a strategic alliance together where we do these interactive programs. And he's been around for a period of time. And just throwing out some names, because even when I start finding out I had this, people know like Nate Archibald, Don Chaney. I spoke about Howard H. White. I'm white and all too. Him. And then there's Baines, who played, he's a Hall of Famer and all, played for Chicago and all. He had to have a heart and a kidney transplant and all too. There's ball players out there. So when you start throwing names out there, sometimes that gets people attention on. That's why it's kind of nice. There was a guy too, Pete Shaw. We played against. Pete played for San Diego Chargers. Willie Stargell has his charity golf event. He passed away and all. I was go down there every year and all. And there was another ball player, we're good friends with, and we sitting there talking. He said, "Hey, Art," I was talking about the amyloidosis. He said, "Hey, Art, you remember Pete Shaw used to play?" I said, "Yeah, we played against each other. He finished up with the Giants. Come to find out, 5 years ago, he was diagnosed." And he has a story. He sat down and talked, even family-wise, and it just takes you to another level. And I somewhat, in my mind, I'm thinking, that's why we need to get that information out there, because even within the Black African-American community, a lot of times, man, hey, you keep your health issues, man, that's nobody else's business. You think about it. And I throw this out, too, even within NFL. When I was playing ball, take the percentage right now of African-American ball players playing now, there's probably about 50 or so that maybe have that variant or whatever. Then you branch that off. They got family members, grandparents, aunts and uncles. It kind of expands somewhat. And then they got kids. It's more than just the individual. It's about the community, about the family.
I want to click into what you just mentioned about, the pro sports leagues in general, because obviously concussion protocols and the years of denial and any number of things, players like yourself helped fight for medical benefits for the players of today to take care of them long term. You've estimated that a certain percentage of current NFL players, if you just look at the numbers, may have undiagnosed hereditary ATTR. Do you believe the league is doing enough to help screen for genetic risk, even like this one? And what changes would you push for them to get more engaged?
I'm going to tell a story from my perspective, though I can relate. I retired in 1990. All those symptoms came up to this date right now where I got diagnosed and all too. But if I had known way back when, maybe I wouldn't have been, heart problems, those types of things. I got medication right now that it doesn't cure it, but it can stop it from progressing and all. As a ball player today, there's, I think, African Americans playing take 3 or 4% of the active ball players right now. I think it breaks it down to maybe 50 so that might have it. And then I think we discussed too, within our culture and all, you don't talk about your health because it's an individual thing. You don't talk about your family history and all too. That's not a good thing, because when you think about it, just like in that situation, and I put myself in active ball players today, you don't just consider the ball players, but then family, they got kids, they got brothers and sisters, they got aunts and uncles, cousins and all that might be affected of it too. So it takes it to another level, so to speak. Like I said, I can relate to myself. I got 11 kids. I got 26 grandkids, maybe a couple more on the way, and probably more. So that's my responsibility too, of passing that history, my health history, on to my kids and all, so that they can protect themselves and all too, and pass it on within the community and all, because it affects us all. A lot of this information is just starting to come out, and hopefully, we're talking, the union with the NFL alumni, NFLPA and all, about this information and getting it out to the ball players.
You're working with Dr. Sperry and Stanford doctors to raise awareness. What's your biggest goal for collaborating with these experts, and what's the one thing that you want every doctor to know about this condition, ATTR cardiomyopathy?
These doctors, Sperry and all of them, they're experts in that area and all. Sometimes on a level, it's a different language, and it's conveyed to other people within their environment because they can relate to it. But the problem is more so when you go into the community and all. And I'll use Camden. I grew up in Centerville. Projects, different working class of folks, different mindset and all too. You can't use that same approach if you was talking to another doctor when you're going into the neighborhood, so to speak. That's what we've been trying to more so convey that in reference to the doctors and all about the language barrier. Then the same situation too. I grew up in Centerville. Somebody comes in there, a lab coat on, different shade, hair, and talking all this intellectual stuff. You shut off in a fast minute. It's a shame, but you get a doctor maybe that can talk on a level, maybe a darker shade coming in. You get it on a level where everybody can get on the same plane and then take it from there. And that's where you start passing out. And then what we're finding out too, community leaders within the hood or the inner city and all, those are folks you got to work with too, because they also have a relationship with the folks in the community. Those are the things that we've been doing. And then on top, if you want to compound that, what we're doing too is trying like academic centers, Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, Stanford. You just go Northwest. I mean, you can go through all these academic schools and all medical schools, of maybe even talking to physicians that are going to come out and work in the workplace, of maybe doing the exact same program, talking to them from a different angle, working from there, teaming up, doing things together.
On that note, you mentioned your website, Still for Life Foundation, and you share your story and a game plan for advocacy for those who may be struggling with these symptoms or have cardiomyopathy to have these conversations, as you just mentioned. What is the call to action that you want people to know? If you could leave listeners with 3 practical tips on how to advocate for themselves, whether this is having conversations with their clinician to introduce the possibility of genetic testing or being screened for amyloidosis, what would it be if there's someone listening that has a family history that's similar of heart issues, unexplained symptoms? What steps or what practical tips would you leave with them?
I would say talk to your doctor. Talk to your personal doctor about it. Do the research. That's the same thing. I'm always, even with the neuropathy and all, even now that I know I have and I know what it is, I'm always trying to look for ways and all that. Maybe there might be something out there, talking to your doctor about those types of things. And then, as I stated before, we don't have the answers, but, on our website and all, we direct, I don't know how many centers out there in the United States and all, but we got a list of them out there, and then there's more coming on board. And what we've been finding out too, folks been contacting us, and we just more so direct to the expert. We said educate to activate. And that's the reason why we're doing these programs. And it's not programs, you're just going talking to those in the community on the level and all, where they can understand and encourage them, not only for themselves, but they know somebody that has, family member or neighbor, whatever and all. Talk to them about it. Talk to your doctor about it. The key on that too is that's why you almost got to advocate for yourself, because sometimes they'll pass over. And I'll give you an example. My brother, I said, that had the pacemaker and all that stuff. My brother, after I gave him all information, he's going to visit his primary doctor, and the doctor just discouraged him and say, hey, man, just take your heart medicine. So if you start hearing things like that, maybe you need to see somebody else, or maybe you need to talk to somebody else, because if you got that blind ear, and it's not a simple test to check and see if you have the genetic, and then you can work it from there. What I did was a wipe, they swab your mouth. And if you do, and then you can take it to the next level and find out if you got the crap. I mean, I shouldn't say crap. I call it crap. But it's a simple thing just to start off, but you got to start off by talking to your doctor. And if he doesn't want them, you got all these symptoms and he's not listening, maybe talk to somebody else or whatever, or get in touch with folks that are familiar with it, like the amyloidosis centers in your particular region or city.
Art, this is exactly why I started this podcast, to reach patients who maybe have experienced or suffering from chronic diseases. The reality is, as you just mentioned, there are many doctors that don't know, because they weren't trained, about genetics and the implications for our health, our treatment, and long-term screening or survivorship or hereditary conditions. They do not know. So this is why I share these patient stories. And I'm so grateful, Art, for you sharing your story, for coming on and giving your firsthand experience, because there's somebody out there that's having a similar experience and they're curious. They want to find that solution. They want to find that bit of information, and they come across this podcast on various platforms. And this is why we do it, so they can have the knowledge, the language, and the confidence to go in and have these conversations armed with knowledge and information. So we're going to share a lot of the links that you talked about on the episode page. You guys can go to geneticsforhealthcare.com on this episode page and find that and download it, print it out, and do your own research to have these conversations.
I'm very thankful, because this is part of the process of getting information out there. But feel free with me. Like I said, I got to disclaim, I ain't no doctor. But the thing is, if you get in contact, we'll direct you to the folks, to the centers and all too. And on our website, we got resources and all too there that they can go to. And like I said, we just tell our story and just more so direct. Here's where you need to go. Here's the people you can talk to. And then now that takes the initiative. Young ones, you teach them how to work out or moves and all that kind of stuff. You talk to them, but you also encourage them to learn on their own. Don't depend on one person. If you educate yourself, you're going to be able to advocate for yourself. But if I'm telling you, you do this and do that, and you just doing it because of what I'm saying, it's not going to take you too far. But once you get in your mind and then you learn, you're going to advocate for yourself and all, so to speak.
Art, the folks who are listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and others where we have our audio feed, by the way, you guys, you can catch the video on YouTube and our website, by the way. But what they can't see, Art, that you mentioned you retired from the NFL in 1990, but you look like you just retired. I got to ask you, what are you doing to stay in phenomenal shape despite your health conditions that you continue to fight?
Well, Michael Jackson left me in his hybrid birth chamber and then a couple of gummies on the side, man, and some Jimi Hendrix, man. I'm all over. No, hey, but that's another thing, genetics. Our parents have left us with different genetics. And here people ask, how you get so big and so tall? And it took me a while to figure that one. I thought I developed this on my own. But the thing is, when I came out that womb, whatever genes my father and my mother had, they blend them together, my height and all that stuff. I didn't create the height and all too. But I can, as far as weight-wise, you have control over that and all too. So that's where you take it in responsibility. You'll see on our website, we got Instill for Life, and we say extending your shelf life. And so the thing is, there's simple things, man, people don't think about. When I was playing ball, I know working out, man, that was important. Nutrition, and all these types. Then I found out too, one of the most important things is our sleep, handling stress, and those types of things. If you can sleep, I watch what I eat. I educate myself as far as, researching things and all too. Try to handle stress as much. We live in a very stressful world and all too. So handling stress, exercise. Every day I'm working out. Before I got on the podcast, I'm down in the sun. I use my band workout because I'm always thinking in terms. And, when you're playing ball, and I think mentality has been with me since and all. Because, when you're playing a game, man, you got to anticipate what's going to happen on this next play. I said the biggest game or biggest sport out there is life. And it's the same thing. You got to anticipate around that corner. And I'm at an age now, I'm going around that corner, but I want to be prepared going around the corner so I can stand on 2 feet, man. And then maybe I can see it and all too. But it's about keeping in those terms, man, keeping your head on a swivel, man. There's always something out there, but it's how you react and what you do about it.
I know you was a defensive player, so I played at Mizzou. Fun fact, folks, the head coach, Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, was my offensive line coach when I was at Mizzou, and I was a freshman running back learning blocking schemes. I know you were a defensive player. Yeah. Because that's a term defensive players learn. Keep your head on a swivel because somebody is coming.
And when you bring up two things, when you said MU, I can remember 1978, I got drafted right behind Earl Campbell. First guy that I played against, we had a scrimmage game at MU. It was Dan Deardorff. And I can remember seeing pictures of him in Sports Illustrated, man, 2 teeth missing, man, helmet, one of the toughest ball players, one of the nicest guys. You see these ball players, but a lot of them, man, them big boys, they might project themselves, but a lot of them just little teddy bears, man. They're not teddy bears when I was playing against them, but afterwards, he gave me a little hug, man. But
yeah, so we got to sock it out. Mizzou and KU got to sock. KU, that's Kansas. Mizzou and Kentucky.
You say that right, man. Don't get us confused now with the what they call them, Jayhawks or something. I don't know.
I don't call them nothing.
Yeah. But don't say that too long. You might mess up our podcast.
Well, Art Still, Kansas City Chiefs, great ambassador for not only the Kansas City Chiefs in the community, but also for genetics and ATTR cardiomyopathy. Thank you for sharing your story and being a guest on Genetics for Healthcare.
Thank you, too, for mispronouncing that word, because it took me about 2 or 3 years, man, but you got it close.
Amyloidosis.
Yeah. Hey, appreciate that, too, there.
Thank you.
This is Genetics for Healthcare, a podcast for patients.